There are some Hollywood stories that seem too perfect to be true. They begin with dazzling premieres, glamorous photographs, and smiling faces that appear on magazine covers around the world. But behind many of those famous images are relationships that quietly fall apart under the pressure of success, temptation, and constant public attention. Very few couples escape that fate, yet for more than 50 years, one relationship managed to do exactly that. Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward became something almost impossible in the entertainment industry, a marriage that survived fame, personal tragedy, career sacrifices, and the passing of time itself. For years, Paul Newman seemed to have the life everyone dreamed of. His films became classics, audiences adored him, and his marriage to Joanne Woodward continued to grow stronger. From the outside, it appeared that he had found the perfect balance between Hollywood success and family life. But behind closed doors, Paul carried a pain that few people truly understood. His oldest son, Scott Newman, had struggled for years with addiction. Like many young people searching for their place in the world, Scott found himself caught in a battle that became harder to escape with time. Paul loved his son deeply, yet he often wondered if his demanding career had kept him away during the moments Scott needed him most. Then, in 1978, tragedy struck. Scott passed away at just 28 years old after an accidental drug overdose. The heartbreaking news changed Paul's life forever. Friends later said they had never seen him so devastated. Although he rarely showed his emotions in public, those closest to him knew he blamed himself. He questioned every decision he had made as a father. Could he have spent more time with Scott? Could he have recognized the warning signs sooner? Those painful questions stayed with him for years, and no amount of fame or success could erase them. Through it all, Joanne never left his side. She didn't try to take away his grief because she knew she couldn't. Instead, she became the steady presence he leaned on when the weight of loss became almost unbearable. Rather than allowing the tragedy to destroy their family, the couple searched for a way to turn unimaginable pain into something meaningful. Paul founded the Scott Newman Center, an organization dedicated to educating young people about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse. He often said that if sharing Scott's story could save even one family from experiencing the same heartbreak, then his son's memory would continue to make a difference. Joanne supported that mission every step of the way. People admired Paul's legendary performances, his unforgettable blue eyes, and the effortless charm that made him one of Hollywood's biggest stars. But those who knew him personally often believed his greatest achievement wasn't found on a movie screen. It was the life he built with Joanne. Their marriage wasn't perfect. It wasn't free from hardship or heartbreak. Like every lasting relationship, it demanded patience, forgiveness, and difficult choices that no audience ever saw. When people asked Paul near the end of his life what truly mattered, he rarely talked about awards or blockbuster films. Instead, his thoughts almost always returned to the woman who had shared every chapter of his journey. This is the remarkable story of a love that outlasted Hollywood itself. Long before Paul Newman became an international movie star, he was simply another young actor trying to make a name for himself. The early 1950s were filled with uncertainty. He attended acting classes in New York, chasing opportunities while hoping that one successful role might change everything. It was during this period that fate introduced him to Joanne Woodward. Unlike many aspiring actresses of the time, Joanne wasn't focused on glamour or celebrity. She loved acting for the craft itself. She carried herself with quiet confidence, and her dedication immediately earned the respect of people around her. Paul noticed that almost instantly. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She simply wanted to become the best performer she could be. Although there was an obvious connection between them, life wasn't that simple. Paul was already married and raising a family. Because of that reality, neither of them allowed their growing admiration to become something more. Instead, they developed a friendship built on shared ambitions and countless conversations about acting. Those early meetings left a lasting impression. Years later, Paul admitted that Joanne stayed in his thoughts long after their paths separated. As time passed, both continued working toward their dreams. Hollywood slowly began opening its doors. Small opportunities turned into larger ones. Then destiny brought them together again. Their careers crossed once more when they worked on the Broadway production of Picnic. Spending long days rehearsing gave them something they hadn't experienced before: time. Real conversations replaced brief encounters. They laughed together, encouraged one another, shared frustrations about auditions and the unpredictable nature of acting. The attraction that had once been quiet slowly became impossible to ignore. But what surprised Paul most wasn't Joanne's beauty. It was how completely she understood him. She saw beyond appearances. She wasn't impressed by charm or good looks. She cared about honesty. She challenged him when necessary and celebrated his successes without making them about herself. That kind of connection was rare. Paul later admitted she made him want to become a better man, not because she asked him to, but because he believed she deserved someone worthy of her love. Eventually, Paul's first marriage came to an end. The divorce attracted public attention, and many people formed opinions without knowing the full story. Some criticized the relationship that followed. Others doubted it would ever survive. Hollywood had seen countless romances begin with excitement only to disappear within a few years. Few expected this one to be different. In January 1958, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward married in Las Vegas. The ceremony was simple. There were no predictions that history was being made. No one imagined this marriage would become one of Hollywood's greatest love stories. The beginning wasn't easy. Paul's career suddenly exploded. One successful film followed another. Audiences couldn't get enough of him. Directors competed for his schedule. His performances turned him into one of the most recognizable actors in the world. With fame came endless attention. Photographers followed him almost everywhere. Magazine covers praised his striking appearance. Fans lined up hoping for a glimpse of the actor everyone seemed to admire. Through all of it, Joanne remained remarkably calm. She understood what fame could do to a person. She had already experienced success herself. In fact, before Paul received his first Academy Award, Joanne had already earned one of her own. She was never simply the actor's wife. She was an extraordinary talent whose accomplishments deserved recognition in their own right. Yet as Paul's career reached extraordinary heights, Joanne quietly made a decision that would shape the rest of their family's future. She stepped away from many leading opportunities, not because she lacked ability, not because Hollywood stopped calling. She wanted stability for their children. Someone had to create a home that fame could never provide. She chose that responsibility willingly. Paul never forgot what she sacrificed. Years later, whenever people praised his incredible career, he often reminded them that none of it would have been possible without Joanne's support. While he traveled between movie sets around the world, she carried responsibilities that rarely appeared in newspaper headlines. She kept their family grounded. She protected the children from the chaos that surrounded celebrity life. She created normal moments inside an extraordinary existence. Paul understood exactly how much that meant. The public saw the glamorous premieres. Joanne experienced the long absences, the late-night phone calls, the endless balancing act that came with loving someone whose career demanded constant travel. Still, she stayed. Not because life was easy, because their commitment mattered more than convenience. Over the years, Paul became famous for a light-hearted comment that people still remember today. When asked why he never seemed interested in affairs, despite constant attention from admirers, he joked that there was no reason to look elsewhere when he already had something wonderful waiting at home. People laughed at the remark, but those closest to him believed there was genuine truth behind the humor. He knew how fortunate he was. The strongest moments of their marriage weren't glamorous. They weren't red carpets or award ceremonies. They were ordinary evenings spent together. Family dinners. Private conversations. Shared laughter after difficult days. Those quiet moments became the real foundation of their relationship. Away from cameras. Away from headlines. away from Hollywood. As Paul's success continued growing, Joanne remained the one opinion he valued above all others. If she believed a script wasn't right, he listened. If she questioned one of his decisions, he considered her advice carefully. She wasn't impressed by celebrity. She cared about character. That honesty became one of the greatest gifts she ever gave him. Together they built something increasingly rare inside the entertainment industry. Not a perfect marriage, but an honest one. Neither could imagine that the greatest challenges of their lives were still waiting ahead. The years to come would test their family in ways no amount of fame, success, or fortune could prepare them for, and those heartbreaking moments would ultimately reveal just how unbreakable their bond had truly become. As the years went by, Paul Newman's priorities began to shift. The bright lights of Hollywood no longer held the same appeal they once had. He continued acting in memorable films and remained respected throughout the industry. But fame was no longer what motivated him. Instead, his greatest happiness came from the quiet life he shared with Joanne, away from movie sets and award ceremonies. They enjoyed simple moments together, long conversations, time with family, and peaceful evenings far from the spotlight. After everything they had experienced, those ordinary days became more valuable than any Hollywood celebration. But another heartbreaking challenge was quietly approaching. Joanne's health began to decline. Over time, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, an illness that slowly affected her memory and independence. For a man who had spent his life solving problems through determination, this was one battle he couldn't win. Friends noticed that Paul gradually stepped away from public life. He turned down projects, avoided unnecessary appearances, and chose to spend as much time at home as possible. His focus wasn't on protecting his career anymore. It was on protecting Joanne. Those who visited the couple often spoke about Paul's kindness and patience. Even on difficult days, he treated Joanne with the same love and respect he had shown her decades earlier. There were no cameras documenting those moments. No reporters. No applause. Just a husband keeping the promise he had made many years before. As Paul's own health began to decline, he seemed to understand that his time was becoming limited. Yet he rarely complained. He preferred spending his remaining days surrounded by the people who mattered most instead of seeking attention from Hollywood. When Paul Newman passed away on September 26, 2008, at the age of 83, the world mourned the loss of a legendary actor, race car driver, businessman, and philanthropist. But those who knew him best remembered something even greater. They remembered the husband who never stopped choosing the woman he loved for more than 5 decades. Paul and Joanne proved that real love isn't built on perfection. It's built on loyalty, on sacrifice, on forgiveness, and on standing beside each other when life becomes its most difficult. That may be the greatest legacy Paul Newman ever left behind, not just the unforgettable characters he played on screen, but the extraordinary love story he lived when the cameras were no longer rolling. As we look back on Paul Newman's extraordinary life, it's easy to focus on the achievements that made him a Hollywood legend, the iconic performances, the unforgettable smile, the racing victories, and the charitable work that touched countless lives. All became part of an incredible legacy. But if you had asked Paul himself what mattered most, the answer probably wouldn't have been found in any award or headline. It would have been Joanne. For more than 50 years, they stood by each other through success, heartbreak, loss, and illness. Their marriage wasn't perfect, and they never claimed it was. Like every lasting relationship, it required patience, compromise, forgiveness, and a willingness to keep choosing each other, even when life became difficult. In an industry where so many relationships faded under the weight of fame, there's remained a rare example of loyalty and devotion. Perhaps that's why their story continues to inspire people today. It reminds us that true love isn't measured by grand gestures or glamorous moments. It's found in the quiet acts of kindness, the difficult days faced together, and the promise to never stop showing up for the person you love. Paul Newman may have been one of Hollywood's greatest stars, but his most meaningful role wasn't one written by a screenwriter or performed in front of a camera. It was being a devoted husband, a loving father, and a man who never forgot what truly mattered. Thank you for watching. If Paul and Joanne's remarkable journey touched your heart, let us know in the comments what part of their story inspired you the most. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unforgettable story from the lives of Hollywood's greatest legends. Until next time, take care of yourselves, cherish the people you love, and remember, sometimes the greatest stories aren't the ones that play out on the big screen. They're the ones lived quietly, day after day, with the people who mean everything.